Okay, we are continuing to learn more about that couple from Michigan and Mexico, Christy and Paul Akeo. They are currently imprisoned in a maximum security facility in Mexico. Their lawyer sitting down with our Lauren Baker to talk about the conditions they're living in, what he calls corruption in the courtroom, and what's next for this Michigan family. Take a listen to what he had to tell us.
So we wanted to talk to you about what's happening to the Akios. We know that you're the attorney for them, at least here in the United States. From a legal perspective, can you kind of break down what's happening to them right now?
Sure. So, I mean, it's a sad story. In 2021, they were convinced at a sales presentation to buy a timeshare. It was also called a vacation package by a company called Palace Resorts. And in essence, they initially went down and enjoyed the resorts. They were convinced to buy into a bigger investment. And basically in 2021, the Akeos believed that they weren't getting what they were paid for, that they were making reservations, they were being canceled by Palace. And you're paying a lot of money and you're not getting what you pay for, and it's on your American Express card. It was on Paul's card. So they challenged the charges. And American Express agreed with them and refunded about $116,000. So uh, and that they thought was the end of it. They actually hired a lawyer in Florida to help them with it. There was some back and forth, and it ended. And they'd been to Cancun several times since then, going to different resorts. In any event, on March 4th, they flew down to Cancun, and they were arrested at the airport. There was a video crew there, photographers, and they were initially held in detention. They were not. Nobody from the U.S. consulate was able to meet with them. They were denied counsel initially, and they were thrown in prison. And they're in Cerezo Cancun, which is a maximum security Mexican prison filled with the most disreputable people you can imagine, who are alleged to have committed horrific crimes. Paul's a 21-year Navy vet and an employee of the Michigan State Police. He runs the physical plant. And Christy's a grandmother and a mom and a small businesswoman. She ran a cleaning company for years, and all because they challenged a credit card with American Express that they won, and that Christy posted about it on a Facebook page where 8,000 other people who have issues with Palace's policies and the way they do business are on. So what happened is that Palace, the day before they arrived on March 3rd, made an Interpol red notice. And Interpol is an international clearinghouse where it says to other countries, hey, this person is wanted, right? So if they posted it at any time after 2021, the Michigan State police would have picked it up because they do annual suitability and criminal reviews for their employees. They clearly didn't want them to know. And then they clearly wanted to tell the media down in Mexico, oh, they were wanted by Interpol. They weren't wanted by Interpol. Palace Resorts and the Mexican prosecutor's office put that together. So what's really disturbing about this case is that Palace Resorts is negotiating their release. Their Mexican lawyers, nor my office, is not dealing with a prosecutor's office, with law enforcement. They're dealing with representatives of the company. In fact, their general counsel called me today. And they won't release them from prison. And it's Palace's decision unless they do the following. One is pay, initially they wanted $1.6 million, which of course they don't have. Now it's $250,000. They have to permanently get a Facebook page removed that's critical of Palace. They have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which is the most one-sided thing I've ever read, and I'd be happy to share it with you, that says that if they say anything about Palace Resorts, their experience in prison, anything negative, they have to pay Palace Resorts $1 million. If anybody in their family says it, if they report to law enforcement about it, they have to pay $1 million. Then they have to publicly apologize to Palace, saying this is all their fault, and post it on Facebook. This is all their fault, and Palace are great guys. It's a shakedown, and it's wrong. And they've been sitting in prison for, 3 weeks, um, uh, until yesterday, until the family went public with this. Um, Christy Akeo had been getting almost no food because she has serious seafood allergies. She carries an EpiPen that they took from her. All their personal items have been stolen. Their passports are missing, and they're sitting in a prison. Finally, the U.S. State Department was able to meet with them yesterday, and the conditions have improved marginally, thank God. And we're really grateful for the hard work the State Department's really recently put in. And I know they're in touch with the White House as well. So that's where we stand. They're insisting that, you don't get out of jail unless you do exactly what a corporation wants. Pretty scary. And I would just tell all your viewers, think twice before you go to Mexico. And I hope the government and the senators and the local member of Congress has been very helpful to the family. He called him personally, and they're very grateful for that. And there's a lot of people praying for him. There's thousands of people online um, that have supported him and are praying for him. And Paul's a 21-year veteran of the U.S. military. And when I raised my hand and swore an oath, as a naval officer, one of the first thing I learned is we keep faith with our people, our veterans, and our country deserves to keep faith with them. He's done nothing wrong, nothing. And if they have an issue with the money, you file a lawsuit like every other corporation does. You could sue them in Mexico, you can sue them here. And I've made the offer to them that we'll raise the money and deposit $116,000 in an escrow account, and you can sue them here in the U.S. or in Mexico. And if you win, great. If you don't, then so be it. But they don't want to do that because they want their pound of flesh, and they want to silence two Americans who are just simply asserting their rights. Imagine if you can go to prison for a bad Yelp review. That's really what's happening here.
There are so many questions with the information that you just gave me. I think one of the clearest ones is what's the motive behind this? Like you said, they're two middle class Michiganders just going on vacation. Why would they be targeted?
Well, number one, Christie's daughter was a leading, was very public in the Nasser case and got a very large settlement. And it's public, and Christie was public about it. Christie did not get a settlement, but I frankly think they think the family has money. My client's mother is not going to have her daughter, who was horrifically abused by Larry Nasser, pay her settlement money to some Mexican crackpots who are, running some timeshare operation. So I think that's one. Two, I suspect it's political, and three, I think they're really mad at Christie because she spoke up. When you're unfair to people, and if you look online about Palace, all I can tell you is what I've read. There's thousands of complaints about their sales practices, the way they do business, et cetera. There's positive stuff too, so I'm not going to misrepresent it, but there's a lot of people that are very unhappy with the way they do business. And if you sign a contract in Mexico, apparently you only have 5 days to cancel it. And apparently Palace, if you believe the reports online, has made it very difficult to cancel. So you have a lot of people who now have to pay huge monthly charges who feel taken advantage of, rightly or wrongly. And it doesn't really matter whether, if you simply because you express an opinion about a company, or you talk about your experience on how you challenge charges and talk about how they try to take advantage of you online, that's not a basis to go for criminal charges. It's a civil case. It would be a civil case in Mexico, and our Mexican attorneys are telling the Lemke's children, Mike and Christy, that this should be a civil case, that this to them seems corrupt. I know as a lawyer it's corrupt. People don't go to prison because you contest a hotel bill. They go to prison for contesting a hotel bill in North Korea or Russia, and now apparently Mexico. And the thing that's significant about places like North Korea and Russia, the State Department has a do not travel warning. That's the highest level to Americans saying you're in danger. And I really do think that the State Department should, as to Cancun and the state of Quintana Roo, where Cancun is, really ought to put that up. It's not safe for Americans to travel there. If you have any questions about it, you can talk to the Akio family.
Another question some people have is, how is this legal? How can a corporation say, okay, if you want to get out of prison, you have to pay us? Is it different in Mexico, or,
It's
why
not.
is,
No, it's not. It's not legal there. The justice system there is totally compromised. The legitimate elements of the Mexican government have no control. The area is controlled by, it's widely reported the area is controlled by criminal gangs. The justice system is not just, it's totally one-sided and compromised. And, anybody who's ever been in Mexico and been pulled over by a police officer knows it's compromised, and it's a tragedy. My clients don't have any issue with the Mexican people or even the employees, most of the employees at the resort. They're good people. They have issues with the corporation and the way they run it, and the fact that they're being held in prison and will not be released unless they do precisely what some Mexican timeshare corporation run by billionaires says they're going to do. And that's wrong. And our government and every American ought to be disturbed that this happening. Thousands and thousands of Americans own real estate or timeshares, perhaps even a million or more in Mexico. And this is a troubling development that if you have a disagreement with them and you don't pay precisely what they want, when they want, or you challenge it on your American Express card, they're going to throw you in jail. Not good.
so how do you battle a situation like this? What do you as attorney do to kind of help, alleviate the situation and get these people back home?
Sure. Well, some of what I'm doing I can't discuss, but I can tell you what happened here is the family for 2 weeks tried very, very hard to resolve this without publicity because they didn't want to place their parents in danger. And they couldn't get any response from Palace. They had one hearing. They were forced to wear Palace slippers, Palace Resort slippers to the hearing in their jail garb. Palace Resort's lawyers and personnel were heckling them in the hearing and laughing at them. And the hearing was a joke. The judge didn't set a trial date. They don't, said essentially, you're in prison for another 6 months. Palace, you get to build your case. What? I mean, we give people accused of horrendous crimes in this country, very serious crimes, bail all the time, and the same is true in Mexico. Then they ask to be held under house arrest in a hotel or someplace that they could agree with the prosecution on. Palace disagreed, didn't happen. So Palace is really controlling this. This is not they're acting like this is some criminal case and the Mexican criminal authorities are exercising their judgment. It's a bunch of nonsense. This is Palace. Palace controls it, and they're basically putting him in jail until they pay him exactly and do exactly what they want. And like I said, that's disturbing. So the first demand they had is to remove the Facebook page. Well, Christy and Paul don't control the Facebook page. This Facebook page had 8,000 members who were largely disgruntled with Palace, but because out of concern for the Akeos, they pulled it down. And Palace said, if you pull the Facebook page down, we'll negotiate with you in good faith. And then they didn't hear from them for 10 days. And that's when they decided to go public, that their clear intent is to hold them indefinitely, to silence them, and to punish them for daring to speak up.
My last question is, where do we go from here? You had said that there have been some changes made to their accommodations in prison. Is that the only update we have? And where do we go from here now?
The real update is Palace hasn't responded to my offer to say, look, we'll deposit the money so you can have access to it, and we'll go to a legitimate court and litigate this issue where you're not under the duress of being in prison unless you admit wrongdoing, et cetera. That's what communist countries did to American prisoners of war. That's what despots do. That's what criminals do. And they won't agree to it. And I think that tells you a lot. It tells you a lot about our confidence in what happened, and it tells you a lot about Palace and who they really are.
So we are going to give you this statement right here that from the Palace Company. They have received this statement to ABC News about the Akeo's arrest. They say, quote, the Palace Company subsidiary, Palace Elite, filed a criminal complaint with Mexican authorities after Paul and Christy Akeo fraudulently disputed legitimate credit card charges and publicly encouraged others to do the same. Mexican prosecutors reviewed the evidence and, following failed attempts to serve notice, obtained a court-approved arrest warrant. Interpol validated the case and issued a red notice leading to the Akeo's detention at Cancun Airport on March 4th, 2025. A judge has since ruled there is sufficient cause for the case to proceed to trial and ordered the preventative detention of the Akeos. Of course, that is still a developing story. We will continue to keep you updated as new information on that case comes out.